The U.S. and Russia are meeting today in an effort to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine. The fighting there, of course, has been brutal. The casualties rising. The short-term goal of these meetings is a ceasefire, getting one in place. But that is just the first step to answering a long, larger, simmering question. Can the world trust Vladimir Putin? And how does the world ensure that Putin doesn't do what he did in Ukraine again to Ukraine or to another country? European countries close to Ukraine are preparing for the absolute worst. They are building up their militaries. And a new documentary, Putin's Endgame, shines a light on some of the NATO countries near Russia. We're talking Finland, Estonia, Sweden as well, and the fears that they could be Putin's next target. As you'll see in this clip, many are wondering if Putin's goals end at the Ukrainian border or extend further.
What do you think is going to happen if Russia wins in Ukraine?
That is, I think, $1 million question. Maybe if I can answer to you with a question. Have you ever met a millionaire who, after earning his or her first million, has said that this is enough, I don't want any more? I don't think so.
The documentary is a co-production with the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center, and joining us now are the two journalists behind the film, reporter and writer Kevin Tibbles and director-producer Joel Seidman. Good to see both of you. Kevin, one of the great writers and foreign correspondents ever produced by a certain network that's a competitor with this one, so I won't name it, but good to see you. We worked together briefly. Katie also says hi. We're all big fans. And I sent her a link to this documentary because it's terrific. Seeing you interact with people on the street in Finland, Estonia, and Sweden is just such a window into the feeling there. Talk about those conversations.
Well, basically, these are Vladimir Putin's neighbors. Now, who do you want to talk to when you want to find out what Vladimir Putin is like? You talk to his neighbors. They don't trust him. They've seen all of this before. Let's just take one little example. Estonia. Estonia was invaded by the Soviet Union. It had its citizenry either murdered or sent to Siberia to die in labor camps. And they have only been really free since the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Empire. In Finland, the fellow that was just giving us this interview about the millionaire, Finland pushed the Soviets back during the Second World War and what they call the Winter War. You're seeing the borderline there between Russia and Finland, except that borderline moved because the Soviet Union did annex some of Finnish territory. As a matter of fact, the current president of Finland, his family comes from the other side. So if you want to have talks in Saudi Arabia, for example, you would think that at least Ukraine would be at the table.
Referring there, of course, to those ceasefire talks that the U.S. is trying to broker between Ukraine and Russia. So, Kevin, you spoke to people on the street. You did this kind of man-on-the-street style interview to really get a pulse of what every person is thinking in these countries. Let's play a part of the conversation you had with some young people in Estonia.
This grabbed me, too.
What happens to Estonia if Putin wins Ukraine?
We never thought about it, actually.
These kids are so...
I don't know.
It's terrifying to think about this.
Yes, and the part of our brain is just blocking.
This scary thought.
So, Kevin, what did you make of their reaction to your question? And also, what similarities and differences did you see when you spoke to people from these different countries about the prospect of Russia winning the war in Ukraine and what that meant for them?
Well, first of all, those two young boys who I would say are military age are standing and talking to me at the train station in Narva, Estonia, which is, that's about 100 yards from the Russian border. That's the furthest east NATO goes. They are afraid. And the other kids we talked to as well, they are afraid. And I guess what they're trying to say is that they're blocking it out, but they are afraid. Now, you talk about the other countries. Well, Finland and Sweden, for example, were non-aligned countries. They were neutral countries. That was until Putin invaded Ukraine. All of a sudden now, Sweden and Finland have also joined NATO. All of these countries are looking very closely at NATO. Of course, the United States is the largest, richest, and most powerful of the NATO countries. I'm wondering what they're thinking now when we're starting to hear rumors and noises about the United States not being as dedicated to NATO as it once was.
Yeah, indeed. Joel, I want to get you in here. There's war, of course, but then there's a kind of a gray area conflict, a hybrid style of warfare. You talk about this in the documentary. Could you define that for our viewers and talk a little bit about what's happening in these countries?
Well, certainly. You know, what's happening in the Baltic Sea is that these shadow vessels, freighters and tankers, many of them that are flagged to the Cook Islands and other places. The Eagle S is one of them. You know, drag their anchors hundreds of kilometers on this very shallow sea, and often are breaking cables, severing electricity lines, and most of the allies, the nations in the Baltics, suspect that it's Russia that is behind this. But it's really a very difficult situation in terms of being able to attribute who is exactly doing this and who's defending them and who's pushing them to do these kind of things. The Finns, just a few months ago, were the very first to apprehend one of these ships, and that's the Eagle S. And they boarded it from a helicopter, and they seized their crew, and they moved the ship into a Finnish port. And they are doing an investigation now, which seems to be, according to Finnish sources, that it will point directly to the Kremlin, that this is one of those things that they're trying to do to test the alliance, to see what happens if they can disrupt things in the Baltic and do other things as well.
Joel, the Baltic Sea feels very far away for many Americans. Bring this home for us. Why should Americans be paying close attention to this? And we're running out of time, so if you could do so quickly.
Americans should pay close attention to this because these are our allies. These are the founding members, many of them, of NATO, an organization that's been a security force in Europe and the world for 75 years. And now these nations are feeling very vulnerable, not just to what the Trump administration and the Ukrainians and Russians may come up with in a ceasefire, but also, will they have the American nuclear umbrella to protect them in the future? And now all of these nations are looking very, very seriously about having to defend themselves and having to create their own arms, and maybe even having to say, we don't want American F-35s. We don't want American sophisticated weapons. We want to produce our own.
Yeah. That's right. Kevin Tibbles, Joel Seidman, thank you both very much. People can watch this documentary on YouTube, the Atlantic Council's page. It's got it all there. Thank you again, gentlemen.